So we work with an animal photo, we work with a woman. Let's not have a photo at all in this one, and let's talk about playing with typography. Let's do a typography only slide to continue to break this up and to have something different and interesting on each slide. So the type is going to be play with typography. So let's make it a little bit bigger. Let's just really use contrast, scale, balance. Let's do something really unique. This is going to be playful. So I like the P slightly overlapping, or underlapping, I guess, the bird. So it's underneath the bird. So play and then with. So I would love to do kind of a double type where you have type on top of type. It's right here. And that's hard to read, but I think with some color changes it'll be easy. So with our type, let's highlight it. Let's change it to the purple that we have been using. And I feel like I'd love to add some texture, because right now this just doesn't have any texture. And I don't want to have a drop shadow on this. So let's go ahead and select our layer. But let's bring in our layer styles panel and let's just bring in some quick texture. So these are the legacy swatches, and you can find them by going to options and then loading legacy patterns. I think you almost have to go, I teach this in other classes, but I'll just quickly go over it. You go to window, I think you have to bring in patterns. There's a patterns window, and then there's this little option up here, and it says load legacy patterns. And once you click on that, it'll be available in your layer styles. I have no clue why Photoshop hid these wonderful little textures. I have no clue. We have kind of the dots here, kind of a halftone kind of thing, or we have these kind of horizontal lines. And another thing, if you don't have these, you can always bring in and import new textures or new patterns here for your texture. Or you can go into Adobe Illustrator and create kind of horizontal or diagonal lines and just bring it in and then just kind of do a layering mask to mask over the typography. But I just felt like that added just enough little texture, little kind of diagonal lines to give it something. So let's make this yellow, because I think that just makes a lot of sense with our high contrast theme we have. And let's do a triangle, just kind of doing some kind of user direction. So this is going to help us guide the user to how to read it. Because we have play on top of with, then what? So it's just kind of a fun design element to kind of guide them through that process. So I did a really slight color tweak. I added just a hint more orange, just a hint. It's still very much yellow, but it had a little bit of a yellow or more of an orange bend to it. Now, when we first started, I decided instead of doing highlighter yellow, I added a little rich orange. I felt like I needed to add just a touch more. So you'll notice this has a tiny, tiny, tiny bit more orange. I thought it softened it, and I thought it paired better with the purple. Now that I'm starting to see this theme play out, it's very common to tweak something like that. I'm already 3 slides in, and I'm still kind of getting an idea of what's my theme, what's my color theme. It's just a very slight tweak. So play with, and I wonder if this could use, let's make that even bigger. Play with, we might be able to do a drop shadow with this one. And then typography. So what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate this, and we're going to really play with typography here. So hold down Option drag. Sometimes it always messes up when I do that. And let's type in typography one layer at a time. So we have T right down here, and let's take off drop shadow. We don't need to have that. And let's also, we haven't done any outline typography yet, where we just use the outline and not the fill. Let's do that. Let's kind of make this a little bit more interesting. So let's make the T bigger, and let's create an outline. So what we're going to do, I do this in other classes too, but I'm just going to reduce the fill on this layer. There's no fill, but we're going to go into our layer styles and create a stroke. And we're going to make it that same yellow orange color. And let's maybe make it a 2 size. So just going to make it a 2. Click on OK. So this is going to be the tedious part. We're just going to have to copy or duplicate this layer over and over, and then slowly spell out typography. So here we are. I have all of these as separate kind of letters. So what I want to do here is I just want to click and drag, select all of these. Looks like it's selecting something here. What's it selecting? might be selecting the bird. So let's just lock the bird. So now we could just select this. And let's go up to align. Let's make sure they're all aligned nicely. But let's be playful here. This is not super playful. So let's select every other one. So just holding down shift and selecting every other one, and we can kind of hold down shift and drag them down. So it kind of reads as typography. So let's say I don't want this yellow for whatever reason. I want to change all of these separate layers to something else. I want to change the layering style on all of them. So do I have to click on each layer and do that? No, there's a little trick here. I'm going to select everything and I'm going to just throw it into a folder. So select it all, create a folder. This will be typography. And I want to double click the entire folder because the whole folder has a layer styles panel. And then I can simply, change it all if I want, do a color overlay. So if I wanted to do it white instead of yellow, it's kind of an easy change. So let's kind of bring this down so it's a little bit more into the post there. Let's bring that over so it doesn't get too close to the bird. Okay, so for the next slide, let's bring back in another photo. Let's have this one be wow with movement. Search pixels for something with a person dancing or has kind of their arms in the air, some kind of movement that we can, a photo we can use to illustrate the idea of using movement as a way to make a dynamic Instagram post. And I did find this one right here of a man skateboarding. I thought that would really be a neat way to incorporate some elements. So let's press enter. Let's go ahead and quickly mask him. I might need to do a selected mask on this one, especially for his hair. So I'm going to do select subject and then refine hair, and let's see how that goes. I'm just so glad I don't have to spend all this time using a lasso tool or a magnetic lasso tool to cut them out. This is so nice that Photoshop is really working on those algorithms to make them easier. So once again, any way I can incorporate and layer the photo. So if I can put that little foot over there, what that does is this person is just going to see this slide and they're going to see this random foot. And they're going to wonder, well, what is that? And it's kind of these little visual cues that entice them to continue to swipe. What is that foot there? And then they swipe and they kind of see the man. So it's kind of having that visual interest extend slightly out into this page. So let's sharpen him. I already know for sure I want to do black and white because there's a lot of color to him. Especially with the skateboard, it's kind of distracting. So let's do a black and white. We just want to do it on him, so we're just going through image adjustments. And we got a black and white happening. And so now we need to bring in our typography. So let's just copy and paste this, or do an option and drag and bring that up. We want to continue to have similar typography themes. So this one will be wow with movement. Wow with movement. I'm not going to be able to fit movement on the same line. That's okay. We can do this. Kind of like his hand being there. And this is the issue we have with readability. We always want to make sure we have readability when we put an object over typography. Wow with movement. You might need to get a friend to say, hey, can you read this? Or do a little test. Can you read this? Sometimes it's hard to know how readable it is with just yourself. But I think that reads okay. Let's add some color to this because we have him black and white for a reason, so this can really be accentuated. So let's do purple here to break up that big block of type. So let's do our purple. Doop. There we go. So wow with movement. Let me bring that down a little bit. If I do kind of a generic drop shadow with him, I could even paint on a shadow. That might work a little better. So let's create shadow layer here. Let's drag it underneath. And let's get a soft round brush and paint on. Let's make sure it's black. And we've reduced the opacity. I just love the control that hand drawing shadows gives you. A lot more control. And over here too, I wanted to make that foot look like it's right there. Get the eraser tool, make that a lot smaller and just kind of feather it out. So what we need here is we need a visual background element. Once again, we're running into the problem of the background is static. It's just doing nothing. It's a solid color. And you have this amazing movement happening with this man. And it would be a shame if we didn't accentuate movement more by using shapes. So we have this theme here. So let's continue the theme. Hold down Option Drag and bring this over. So let's use this circle to really draw eyes to the focal point.